On October 7, 1903, Samuel P. Langley had a disaster on his hands. Well, to be precise, his disaster was sinking in the Potomac River in front of a huge crowd of onlookers. All because he didn't ask the right question. Let's take a step back here for a moment. At the dawn of the 20th century, the possibility of human flight was on everyone's minds. Mankind had forever dreamed of soaring with the birds, but the latter half of the 19th century, those dreams were finally becoming a rising reality. Enter Samuel P. Langley. Born in Boston in 1834, Langley had been fixated with the sky since a young age. Initially a gifted mathematician, he became the professor of astronomy at the University of Pittsburgh and later founded the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. But even as he gazed at the stars, his mind became captivated by the more earthbound question of human flight. After studying aeronautics, Langley his first major success came in 1896 when his 25-pound glider flew 3,300 feet after being launched from a boat on the Potomac. Later that year, his other model flew over 5,000 feet. His successes eventually caught the attention of the Assistant Secretary to the Navy, a young Theodore Roosevelt, who helped orchestrate a $50,000 grant, nearly $2 million today, to help develop a full-scale piloted airplane. After years of work and testing, Langley's aerodrome was ready for its maiden launch, and October 7, 1903, crowds gathered in Washington, D.C. to see history in the making. And who could have doubted that he would be successful? He'd been recently appointed as the head of the Smithsonian Institute, as one of the leading scientists of the time. Standing on a custom-built houseboat from which to launch the aerodrome, Langley carefully made sure all the preparations were complete. After helping his test pilot get into position, the moment arrived. The lever was pulled, the aerodrome picked up speed down the launch track, and finally catapulted it free of the boat, only to nosedive right in the river and sink. As onlookers and crew scrambled to rescue the pilot from the wreckage, and thankfully he was safe, Langley looked on his crumpled mass of wings, rope, and propellers, and felt his world and reputation sink with it. Even though the craft was salvaged, it failed another flight test a few months later in December. All the money, effort, and fame was gone. Langley's aerodrome was a disaster. If the head of the Smithsonian Institute and $50,000 of grant money from the U.S. government couldn't create human flight, then how on earth did the Wright brothers, two bicycle builders from Dayton, Ohio, do it for a combined total of less than $1,000 out of pocket in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, 9 days later? One reason the Wright brothers asked a different question. While Langley and the rest of the world asked, how can we create powered flight? The Wright brothers asked, how can we create controlled powered flight? You see, the Wright brothers' genius was creating a control system that allowed a pilot to adapt to the changing circumstances of wind, speed, and power. While everyone else was simply staying airborne and flying straight, the Wright flyer could roll, pitch, and turn to respond to any circumstance. In fact, that's what their patent was. It wasn't on the plane, it was on the control system. In short, the Wright brothers began by asking a different question than everybody else. And the answers they found changed the course of human history. So what does this have to do with influence and success? Simply put, the better the questions, the better the answers. All too often, we begin pursuing a goal with the first question that comes to mind. How can I get this done? Or what should I do? Or how do I get what I want? But are those the best questions to ask? Or are they merely the first ones that come to our mind and our curiosity stops there? The truth is, questions control our focus. Focus controls the direction of our energy and thought, and ultimately our energy and thought determines our results. Do you want airborne outcomes that merely keep you afloat like Langley, or do you want controlled flying, which gives you greater command of the sky? I think the answer is obvious. And to me, it starts by asking the right questions. Instead of, how can I get this done? What about, who is the person that knows more about this and can help me get this done easier? Instead of, what should I do? What about, what is the most important step that must be prioritized above everything else and executed first? Instead of, how do I get what I want? What about, how can I first describe what I want in specific, unmistakably clear terms so my team knows exactly what we are doing? Can you see how these subtle shifts can elevate your results? I often tell my clients that a mile of direction prevents 10 miles of distraction. And learning how to bring curiosity to your questions is the first step towards reaching your goals with greater speed. So next time you're staring at a sky of possibilities, take a moment and get curious. Am I asking the right questions? And who knows, maybe that simple lift will take us all to new heights. Thanks for spending time with me this week. Christian Hansen.